Principle applies across every layer of your security stack, including one of the oldest and still most targeted attack surfaces in existence: email. For decades, email security has operated on a flawed assumption: trust first, filter second. And attackers have been exploiting that assumption ever since. And if zero trust has taught us anything, it's that default trust is a liability. Our next session is about resetting that model entirely, shifting from assumed trust to trust by design. Mailprotector has been pushing this conversation forward, really rethinking how email security should function in a world where threats don't politely announce themselves. Instead of layering filters onto a system built on default trust, they've engineered a fundamentally different approach, applying zero trust principles directly to the inbox. David Setzer, founder and CEO of Mailprotector, has spent decades building, mentoring, and leading with a long-term vision. As an entrepreneur and architect of zero trust email security, he focuses on aligning innovation with real-world partner value. His leadership isn't about product, it's about principle. And if we're serious, and I mean very serious, about zero trust, we can't ignore the front door attackers still, to this day, use the most. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Setzer.
Email's broken, right? I mean, we don't have any arguments on that one. It's broken, and we all know it. This technology, I think, is on the order in the human scope of the printing press or the telegraph wire. But what's happened today is it's become a chore to be managed, and worse, a threat to be feared. I don't think this is what the creators of email intended when they created this technology, do you? If we were talking about this maybe 6, 8, 10 years ago, this number would have been more like 50, 60%. Today, the prime attack vector, over 90% of cyber attacks have used email as the prime attack vector in the attack. Now, what that tells me is that if email security is not at the core of your cybersecurity stack, among about 2 or 3 core pieces, fundamental foundational pieces, if it's not there, then you are always going to be playing catch up. You are always going to be behind the game, because we have to deal with these people. We have to deal with users. Security would be a whole lot easier if we didn't have users, right? 21 seconds is the average amount of time it takes for a user to click on a phishing message. 49 seconds is the average amount of time it takes for a user to be breached. So we've got this technology that's sitting around on every device, on every desk, with these ticking time bombs, and these users that we're just waiting for a breach to happen, waiting for a career to be ended, a business to be ended, and let's face it, we know now lives lost through breaches. I was reading yesterday on the plane, I was reading an MSP talking about what happened. The office manager of one of their clients, she got a phish. Instead of forwarding it to the MSP's help desk, she sent it to everybody in the company and said, hey, do you think this is real? Is this a phishing message? It's a true story. We know where this ends, right? He was bemoaning the fact that at Friday night he was killing sessions and resetting credentials for the whole company. But she sends it out, and 4 of the people wanted to find out if it was or not. So 4 of the people clicked on it. Of course, they were compromised. One of the people that clicked on it was the IT liaison to the partner. And guess what they had just done last week? They just had their phishing training simulation test last week. The whole company did. So this is what we have to deal with. This is what email has become today. It's not what the creators of this great technology meant it to be. Now, the other problem that we have, we've got the security problem, but we've also got the noise problem. We've got these inboxes that are just cluttered and clouded, that fill our lives with noise that we don't want. Whether it's the 15 more qualified leads in 90 days, or the let me help you with your LinkedIn account, whatever it is. Or maybe it's actually something you kind of wanted. You thought maybe you'd want some information, you'd want to talk to somebody. You didn't know you were signing up for 3 emails a day for the rest of your life. You're literally, like in your estate plan, have to tell your family what to do with these emails that keep coming. You don't want to have your badge scanned here. You might be interested in something, but you don't want to have your badge scanned, do you? It was actually at this event last year, I saw a guy walking around with a shirt that said, "Don't scan my badge." I mean, literally, it was like a t-shirt that said, "Don't scan my badge." And I'm thinking, oh, that's pretty funny. And I thought, man, what a sad state of affairs that we have gotten to, that we have to walk around with that shirt that says, "Don't scan my badge," because our lives are inundated with junk that we don't want. And the problem is the noise. This is not the blatant thing that we know it's a threat, or the blatant thing that we know is something that's unwanted. It's the middle ground, the noise. The problem is the noise also hides the threat. The noise hides those ticking time bombs because it desensitizes us. So ultimately, what we've got to do is figure out what the real problem is. And the real problem is trust. The ultimate problem is that we trust everyone and let everyone into the equation. That's why we exist, and that's why we've been doing what we've been doing for over 20 years. Our goal is to return this technology back to what it was meant to be, back to a time when we could communicate with the people we wanted to communicate with, we got what we wanted to get, and we didn't get what we didn't want. Simple as that. That's the goal of what we do. We want to be penicillin, not aspirin. We don't want to treat the symptoms, we want to cure the disease. So to do that, we have to go to the core problem that we're facing today in this technology. Now, if you're going to do that, you got to go back and figure out, how did we get here? What got us to where we are? I always look at the DNA of a technology. Where did it start? How was it created? What are the fundamental assumptions? And we know that email is not an application that's owned by anybody. It's the expression of the SMTP protocol. And this is the network that the protocol was created for. The SMTP protocol is a fundamental underlying protocol of the internet. It was created before the internet. This is the network. It was the ARPANET. So what were the conditions that this was created in? If we're going to understand what the real problem is, look at the network. What do we notice about the network, other than it's like 14 or 13 nodes? The network was closed. Anybody couldn't go get on it. We just couldn't go out there and it wasn't even called email at the time, but we couldn't go out there and get an account or an inbox. We had to be known. We had to be trusted. We had to be vetted and verified. So if you're Susan over at Harvard and you get this electronic message from Bob over at Rand Corp in California, guess what? It's going to be something that you want. You may know Bob or you may not know Bob, but I can guarantee that you're going to be working on the same thing. You're going to have the same function or capability. So when Bob's emailing you, he's emailing you about something that you want to talk about or about something that you need, because Bob is known, Bob is vetted, he's trusted. He's not going to be sending you, this is 1973, so he's not going to be sending you an email asking you to get gift certificates to the Sears and Roebuck catalog and email them to him. It was information that you wanted. It was how it worked because the system was trusted. So the protocol was created as an open protocol. Think about it. SMTP was created to send any message anywhere, anytime from anybody. If I've got any old school folks in here, you remember, SMTP servers used to be open relays. They would just send mail for anybody because it was created for this world of literally nuclear war. It was created so that we would still be able to communicate if half of the network was gone. And that's the protocol that we're still dealing with today. But our problem today is that the network has opened. So now we have a network with billions of nodes and billions of people with no vetting, no credentials, no nothing. We have no idea who they are. They may not even be people anymore. So the network opened, but the protocol stayed open as well. So what that means is that as an email security industry, we've been fighting the wrong side of asymmetric warfare for 30 plus years. They're lobbing $50 or $5 mortars over the wall at us, and we're shooting them down with $1 million missiles because we are still operating under the same assumption, which is the inbox is trusted. Everything is good, figure out what's bad. That's the assumption we've been operating under. Well, the problem is that is an aspirin approach, and it's reactive. It doesn't solve the problem. Every couple of years, we adapt to some new tactic, capability, threat, and we're continuing to stack layer and layer and layer of bureaucracy and clutter and noise on top of what we've been doing. This one, so here's some of today's more common reactions. Look at this one, subject tagging. Does anybody know where subject tagging came from? The external in the subject line, what created that one? It was the CEO phish. It literally was the, hey, Joe, I'm in a meeting. Can you grab 10 $50 Amazon gift cards and send me the numbers and the pins so I can give them to these customers? And Joe's been working there like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He's like, sure, boss. Goes and get the gift cards, send them to the scammers. And there's 100 variations, a whole lot worse than a few Amazon gift cards. Like somebody we know that happened with a $250,000 deposit on an airplane. A lot worse situations that can happen. That's why this was put in place right here. So now we're all walking around in our inbox. Every message that we communicate with someone outside our organization has now got this tag in the subject line that says external. So we're going to live with that forever as a Band-Aid to one of 100 different problems. This other one right here kills me. This one fires me up a little bit. We start slapping these Post-it notes all over our message. And this one, the details have been changed to protect the guilty, but this was a real message. Let's look at this Post-it note right here. Caution. All right, warning. Now, what have we done? We've raised people's stress level. They're trying to use this tool to communicate. We're raising their stress level. Caution. This email originated from outside the organization. Yep, you already told me that in the subject line, so we're good there. Do not click links or open attachments unless you recognize the sender. All right, well, it's Jeff Whitaker. It's Danny Jenkins. It's David Setzer. I recognize the sender. I know who that is, so we're good there, right? That's what our users are saying. I recognize the sender. It's the person's name right there. This one kills me. And know the content is safe. Like, what are we doing? We're asking our customers to do our job. Literally. We're asking physicians and lawyers and accountants and HR people and marketing and shop floor managers. We're asking them to do our job for us, to determine if the content is safe. How are they going to determine if it's safe? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? This is nothing but legal CYA right here. This is nothing but covering our own selves, because we know somebody's going to click on it so that we can say, hey, yeah, we told you, don't click on the content unless you know it's safe. So now we're absolved of all responsibility. But this is our responsibility. My oldest daughter is an NP at a hospital system. And we got the conversation a while back, and she was talking about the phishing training they have to go through and everything. And she said, yeah, anytime I get a message I don't want, I just report it as phishing. I'm like, why do you do that? It's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to help. She goes, I don't know. It's just if I don't want it, I just report it as phishing so I won't get in trouble. Is that what we want our medical professionals doing? Figuring out if messages are phishing or not? I would rather have them saving lives, and we should be doing our job. Because all we've done is put a Band-Aid on the problem. Now, the other thing that we've done for a lot of you in here in the room, for the security admin, the security professional, is we said, hey, we can't really figure it all out either, so we're just going to give you this open platform and let you figure it out. So you're going to have to write all these conditional statements and if-else conditions to create code to solve the email security problem. You're going to have to write your own regular expressions. You're going to have to QA those regular expressions so you can solve the problem. Well, then you end up creating another bit of bureaucracy and 42 more things on your to-do list to manage this platform that should be doing the job. The problem with rules is they're static, they don't adapt, they conflict, they break, they multiply, and ultimately it feels like we're just trying to keep the system from falling back in on itself. It feels like we're getting close to a point where we're not going to be able to do that anymore. We've created so much noise, so many layers of security that actually reduce our security, that the system is going to collapse in on itself, because that's kind of what we're asking you to do. So what we said when we set out, literally, like I said, we've been doing this over 20 years. It was about a decade ago that we said there's got to be a better way of doing this. We've got to figure out how to solve this problem. And the tools in place weren't in place at the time, and those tools are in place now. The solution is deploying a core fundamental cybersecurity concept that's been around since the 80s. I mean, it's literally firewalls in the 80s. That's when this concept came to be. I mean, look, where are we? We're at zero trust world. There couldn't be a better place to talk about this because you understand the importance. It's a fundamental cybersecurity principle. But the problem is that the only way to apply it to email created earplugs. So we said, how can we use the technology? How can we flip the script, flip the underlying assumption of SMTP and say, instead of trusting everything and then trying to figure out what's bad, let's apply zero trust and say, let's assume everything is bad and then figure out what is good. And that's a product we launched about 18 months ago called Shield. We'd worked on the concepts for about a decade. We spent about 3 years rebuilding the application from the ground up, literally tore it down. It was not an iterative process. It was not something that we could tweak. It was something that we had to rethink and rebuild from the ground up. One of the key pieces that we weren't able to implement until the past couple of years is access to the inbox. Because to really create a holistic solution that solves this problem, you have to access data in transit and you have to access the data at rest. But more than that, you also have to see the behavior of the user. And that's where you can apply some targeted AI specifically. Like I said, the big problem in zero trust and email security is not applying it, it's making the technology useful. You have to have a complete edge to inbox on both sides and a holistic integration with the inbox. We've also figured out how to do this without having to change MX records from your 365 accounts. One thing that we decided to do, instead of these static Post-it notes, is actually put dynamic information in every message about that message. Real world, simple English, understandable information. We created a capability called X-Ray where a user can see what's going on with the message, where your admins can see what's happening with a message in real time that updates constantly and in real plain English. One benefit that we've seen from this is that the reduction in the level of tech that you have to employ to diagnose issues. No longer do you have to have an L2 or L3, but most of it can now be done with an L1 because we make it simple to understand. So we give insights about the message, full link chain analysis so that the users can see what the links actually go to, but it's in 100% sandboxed environment so they can't cut themselves. You know, we say we give users the tools and we take away the knives. They can't hurt themselves because they can't actually put in any compromising information, but they can follow the links. We analyze the files. With Lockbox, we can lock the information at rest in the inbox so that compromised accounts can still have protective, sensitive data. Real easy to understand details in a timeline. Something we did for the admins, this was just launched a few weeks ago, called Email Traffic Control. And again, a number of spots in the application where we use targeted AI to do very specific jobs. With intelligent data detectors, they can detect conditions without having to write regular expressions. Create a no-code workflow builder because we don't believe that you need to learn a new coding language just to use your email security application. And then a vetted template library that comes from our team and from a lot of our partners that are already starting to contribute templates to that library. We think the application, the security should be easy to use for the user and easy to use for the admin. Two quick of my favorites on the workflows. One is the DLP workflow. Choose your protected information and have that information only go out encrypted with our passwordless encryption product called Bracket. Simple workflow. Couple of clicks, you can deploy it to a single organization or across your entire tenant. Another one right here, account takeover protection, or we really call this extended takeover protection. What happens when the bad guys gain access to your 365 account? The first thing they do is they put in forwarding rules and they start to reset your other accounts, your LinkedIn account, your GitHub account, your ThreatLocker login. They start to reset your other usernames and passwords because they have the keys to the kingdom, which is the inbox. Well, with this workflow, all you have to do is employ the workflow so when the message body detects any password reset, that reset is automatically encrypted. This is why you have to have edge to inbox. You have to have perimeter and you have to have API, because this is what an API solution cannot do. Those messages are going to hit the inbox before they can be actioned. This is why you have to have the perimeter as well. So those messages now get stubbed into the inbox. The actual message is encrypted, super easy for the user to get out by MFA, but for the bad guys, for the attackers, now they would have to go breach an entirely separate system to be able to see those messages. So this is just one workflow that deploys in seconds that, as we say, greatly reduces the blast radius of any compromised account. What Shield does is ultimately makes your 365 inbox a zero trust inbox. It brings security and sanity back to the entire process and lets you breathe a little bit easier. I've given just a couple quick examples. Like I say, there are hundreds more. Love to dive in and talk about the technology, the principles, everything behind it. Enjoyed being with you guys today. Thanks.